Okay, councillors, thanks. We might make a start. Thanks all and welcome to Nillumbik Shire Council Ordinary Council meeting today, 23rd of March 2021. Members of the public are advised that the meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the live stream and video recording will be made publicly available on YouTube and Council's website. Nillumbik Shire Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We'd also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians present. Councillor is going to read out our Good Governance Pledge.
Thank you. As councillors, we are mindful of our civic responsibilities and obligations. We pledge to take them seriously and to carry them out with diligence and integrity. We know the decisions we take will affect the people and the environment of Nillumbik now and in the future. We understand, therefore, to make sound and principled decisions of lasting value in a spirit of fairness and for a good of all. We also pledge to serve the needs and well-being of the community and the environment in an open and honest manner and to the best of our abilities.
Thanks, Councillor. Can I ask Rev Jonathan Lopez to come forward? Rev Lopez is going to lead us in prayer. Jonathan began his role as priest in charge of St Matthew's Parish at Panton Hill in 2019. St Matthew's Anglican Church is a community family church, and it serves the areas of Hurstbridge and St Andrews from at Panton Hill Church. They're a Christian community made up of people from all walks of life who live locally as well as further afar. St Matthew's includes services at St Andrews, kids' church, a youth group and play group. The congregation gather to worship God and have a desire to follow in the ways of Jesus. Jonathan's also heavily involved in supporting our local Nillumbik Reconciliation Group, and he's a volunteer boxing coach with the Indigenous Youth Club in Fitzroy. So thanks very much for all you do for our community, Jonathan, and hand over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to pray. Thank you, God, for this place we live in, and the beauty of creation and the relationships we have with one another. Pray and thank you for the gifts, skills and experiences of each member of this council and its staff. We pray for the ongoing work of reconciliation with First Nations people, in particular the Woiwurrung Wurundjeri of the Kulin Nation in which the Shire is. We hope for pathways forward, recognising the pain of the past, the work of the present and the hope of the future. We pray and hope for your spirit to produce fruit and fruitful discussions during this meeting. We pray for good order, productive debate and significant relationships to build with one another. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks, Jonathan. And Jim, if you could, Jim, Connor, remember? Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Connor. Deputy Mayor Councillor Francis Eyre has got a presentation, or a number of presentations, I believe. We'll hand over to you, Councillor Eyre.
Thanks, Mayor. Nillumbik Shire Council held our annual International Women's Day event on the 11th of March, where we presented the Young Women Leaders Awards. These awards celebrate the significant achievements of young women in the Nillumbik community. The 2021 recipients of the awards are Young Woman of the Year, Madeline Cameron, who has dedicated herself to advocating for youth mental health, including in the context of COVID-19. Meeting with Prime Minister Scott Morrison last year to discuss the importance of supporting young people's engagement and mental health. Young creative leaders Luna the Moon, an acoustic ukulele trio who adapted their performances to provide online music and entertainment during last year's lockdown. Young sports leader Shania John has blazed a trail, breaking barriers for other girls who want to play cricket and take on leadership roles in community sport. Young business leader Brittany Rukers, who has made waves in the business industry, launching her recycled activewear company, shurekamoy.com, a little over a year ago. We have two of the recipients here tonight, Madeline, a Young Woman of the Year, and Jess Mayo and Isabella Voitis from Luna the Moon, our young creative leaders, and I'm aware that they'd like to both say something at the end of this, so thank you. Thank you for coming. We really wanted to highlight the whole Shire, the incredible work, highlight to the whole Shire, the incredible work our young women leaders are doing in the community. These awards continue to be an important part of our calendar and celebrate the young women of Nillumbik whose leadership skills benefit us all in many ways. We congratulate both the award recipients and the many others who were nominated. All of their stories were inspiring and signal a bright future ahead. Would you like to come forward? You'll go first? Yeah, come forward. Do you want to bring your award as well?
And we'll get a photo with the female councillors as well. Perhaps you guys with the awards, if that's okay. Yep.
Press that. Cool. I'd just like to say thank you to Nillumbik Council for this award. It's such an honour to be given it this year, especially after such a challenging last year we've had. I really have valued the work I've done as part of being a member of Headspace, Greensborough's Youth Advisory Committee. And I really appreciate as well that Nillumbik Council values the work Headspace does for young people in our community. I think we're quite well aware of how prevalent mental illness is in our community, especially young people, and how it's such a vulnerable period in one's life. So I think the acknowledgement that mental health in our community is something that's important is really, really meaningful to me as someone who's had a lived experience of mental ill health. So I'd just like this award to kind of help people talk about it more, feel more comfortable to seek help and look after one another. So thank you.
Thank you, Madeline, and for being so brave and coming forward and sharing your lived experience for the better for our community. Thank you.
We're going to get a photo with the young female leaders with the older. Oh, okay. Are they speak?
Hi, my name's Jess, and on behalf of myself, Izzy and Julia, Luna the Moon, we'd like to say a massive thank you to Nillumbik for awarding us the Young Creative Leader Award. It truly means a lot to us as young women to be playing music to the local community, to the people we love, because as women in the industry, it is a little bit harder to get ourselves out there when there aren't a lot of opportunities. Well, there weren't a lot of opportunities in the past for women in the music industry, and so now we hope that we can inspire other young women to step forward and start playing music just like we did, because it really does put a lot of smiles on people's faces. And yeah, we really love sharing our love of music with others as well. So thank you so much for all of Nillumbik's. So thank you so much for all of your opportunities you've given us, Nillumbik, for playing around the area, and again for the award. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and you ladies are an inspiration, especially with the music and sharing that last year as well. Thank you.
We have a photo.
So we'll get a photo with the young leaders and the older leaders of council, female. But yeah, Lunar of the Moon, I attended a function during the week at Diamond Creek, the new netball stadium, or the new netball pavilion anyway, and it was the Old Men New Ideas 10-year anniversary. So yeah, the girls were playing there. It was great.
Oh, thank you so much.
No worries.
Okay, work the camera. Okay, you've worked too much, Fran. Too much. And one, your chin's just disappear by magic if you look up. Great.
Thanks. Thank you.
We haven't done apologies. No. Apologies is the next item. We're slightly out of order. Can I ask somebody to move that? We've done it, haven't we? Oh, we don't have to do it then. We're all here. Yep. Confirmation of minutes.
Yes, I'd like to move those.
Thanks, Councillor Payne. Moved by Councillor Payne, seconded Councillor Ramcharan. Any discussion?
No.
All right, it's unanimous. Vote. The next
Was that a vote?
we'll put it to vote. Yeah, let's vote on it.
Okay.
Put your hands up if yes.
Right,
Thank you. Disclosure conflicts of interest. I don't believe there are any. Petitions. There are no petitions. Questions of the gallery. We have a few, but not too many. The first is from Travis Hall, whose question is, how does Council justify the rate and waste management increases currently proposed in the 2021-2022 draft budget? So Travis, thanks for your question. The increase to rates and waste management charges are reflective of the continued provision of services maintained at existing levels and capital works program delivery. Travis' second question is why being asked to accept a 13.86% increase for waste management charges so soon after the new deal came into place. Council's approach to the service charge is compliant with statutory regulations and captures all known costs associated with the provision of the service, including the rehabilitation costs of the former landfill sites. The increase in cost of the service is driven by, number one, increases to disposal costs due to volume increases driven by the 240 litre bin rollout and increases in tonnages, and that relates to approximately 44% of that increase. Tipping fees have increased mainly as a result of an uplift of the state government EPA levy. That accounts for 21% of that increase. Curbside waste collection costs have increased due to higher lift numbers driven by new and additional services, and that equates to 22% of that increase. So if you added those percentages up, that comes to 87%, and the balance is made up of minor modifications across multiple line items, largely increased costs associated with the closed landfill sites, including compliance, monitoring and maintenance. So I hope that answers your question, Travis. Michael Cruz asked the following question. According to the September quarter financial report, the council had $6.3 million in long-term loans from NAB and ANZ at rates ranging between 5.86% and 7.91%. Both NAB and ANZ have poor environmental records, example, funding coal miners, and these rates seem excessive. So the question is, has council considered refinancing this debt with institutions with better environment records and or on better terms? So Michael, council has investigated the refinancing of the long-term commercial loans However, due to the terms and conditions and the underlying agreement, the cost to do so outweighs the financial benefit. Michael's second question is noting the previous question and that the 21-22 budget suggests additional borrowings of $7 million, mostly to fund the rehabilitation of the legacy Kangaroo Grandfill. Should this council implement a policy to avoid future borrowings from and or investments with financial institutions with poor environmental and climate change records that could be included in Council's Climate Change Action Plan? So Michael, Council has an investment policy which provides a framework on the utilisation of Council's cash funds within legislative framework. Within the policy framework, preference will be given to financial institutions maintaining environmentally sustainable investment and financing practices or policies, in brackets green institutions. When Council resolves to borrow from financial institutions, a tender process falling under Council's procurement policy is initiated. Tenderers are asked to provide details of around what initiatives or policies they have in relation to divesting from, offsetting fossil fuels. Sue Diet, I see you're here tonight, Sue, welcome. Sue Diet has asked the following questions on behalf of the Eltham Community Action Group. In February this year, ECAG wrote to Council in response to a letter sent by MRPV dated 27 January 2021. A follow-up question is, has Council been consulted by Major Roads Project Victoria, MRPV, in relation to the urban design and landscaping statement that must be prepared in consultation with the councils that include Nillumbik under clause 4.9.1 of Planning Scheme Amendment GC 119, in brackets, which has been incorporated into the Nillumbik Planning Scheme? And so yes, Council received documentation from MRPV on the 8th of March 2021, which is currently being reviewed by both officers and councillors in line with the timelines put forward by MRPV. Question 2, if so, and it is so, when did the consultations take place and were the councillors advised of this process? And part B, did the councillors have any input into the result of the consultations and what was the outcome of the input? So Sue, the consultation with council is occurring from 8th to the 29th of March, which incorporates an extension at council's request to MRPV's initial closing date of the 22nd of March. Councillors have been advised of the consultation and of significant and broad-ranging concerns officers currently have clarity regarding the status of the document, time to respond, concerns regarding the design response, and meeting the requirements of clause 4.9 of the incorporated document. Officers will finalise and submit comments to the MRPV by 29th of March, following Council's comprehensive review and feedback to the documents received. Sue Diet, on behalf of Sue Diet, asked the following questions. During last year, from March 2020, most council staff have been working from home. Also, during that period, staff will have left and staff will have been employed. Given that new staff will also have been working from home, some will have been having interactions with ratepayers, making reports and even recommendations or decisions about our community, whilst living some distance from Nillumbik. Some possibly may have not yet been to Nillumbik. Question 1, how many staff have been employed from March 2020 until now? So 93 staff appointments were made from March 2020 to date. And so no new staff appointments in that. They're replacing people who had gone, of which 17 were employed under the Working for Victoria program. So 17 employed under the Working for Victoria program, their new short-term positions. How has Council ensured and met the challenge of inducting new staff working from home of the history, values, culture and even geography of the area to enable an understanding of this unique municipality? So see, throughout the pandemic, there was no change to the content and the induction for new starters. This process was altered to accommodate for a virtual medium when necessary. The induction bus tour was delayed for some new starters, which provides new starters a tour of the Shire and an overview of the history of significant sites across the municipality. And we understand that that induction bus tour will occur soon. So there are all the questions tonight, councillors. We'll move on to the first report. It's the Advisory Committee report, 23rd of March 2021 on page 5 of the agenda papers, looking for a motion.
I'm happy to move that motion.
Thanks, Councillor Payne, as per the papers.
As per the papers.
Thank you. Seconded.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Councillor Eyre, thank you. Any discussion, councillors? If not, we'll put that to the vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Carried. Oh, procedural motion. Next. I've been told to turn my page. So there's no reports of special committees. We've got a procedural motion that I understand Councillor Duffy would like to put.
Thank you. There's a lot to get through today, and in the agenda, this was meant to be, there's something that's the 13th item that I think we should make a big noise about and bring it forward in our agenda today. And I'd like to move the motion that Council alter the order of business to consider report CM 048/21 to be heard before report CM 029/21 to enable us to hear the endorsement of the Youth Council members. Rather than at the end of the meeting, let's do it at the beginning.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Duffy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Eyre. Any discussion, councillors? I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's unanimous, carried. So we'll move to item 48, endorsement of Youth Council members. Page 111 of the page is your second pack. Sorry, I'm just trying to get there. Okay. I'll look for a mover. Councillor Tran.
Yes, I'd like to move the motion as per the papers, and I believe the names will now be displayed on screen.
Thanks, Councillor Tran.
Should I read it out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll read it out.
I suggest you read it out.
So I'd like to move that Council endorses the 15 applicants listed onto the Nillumbik Youth Council Advisory Committee. Applicant 1, Miley Curta Rice, for their role as a Youth Council Advisory Committee member. Applicant 2, Fiek Vanderkamp, for their role as a Youth Council Advisory Committee member. Applicant 3, Oriana Edmonds, for their role as a Youth Council Advisory Committee member. Applicant 4, Maverick Knight, for their role as a Youth Council Advisory Committee member. Applicant 5, Brianne Keogh, for their role as a Youth Council Advisory Committee member. Applicant 6, Jack Lynan, for their role as a Youth Council Advisory Committee member. Applicant 7, Kira Imbriano, for their role as a Youth Council Advisory Committee member. Applicant 8, Lachlan Wadsworth, for their role as a Youth Council... Do I have to say that over and over again? Advisory Committee member. Can I... just the names? Okay. That was getting a bit of a mouthful. I'll read the rest of the names out. Katie O'Brien, applicant 9, Indiana Sandwell, applicant 11, Imogen Jacques, applicant 12, Kevin Cartwright, applicant 13, Bailey Cumming, applicant 14, Taj Andrita, and applicant 15, Joseph Bowman. 2, acknowledges and thanks all community members who submitted applications to the Youth Council Advisory Committee. And 3, resolves that the applicants and interviews and panel assessment remain confidential on the grounds specified in the definition of confidential information in Section 3(1)(f) of the Local Government Act 2020.
Thanks, Councillor Tran. I'll just confirm, Councillor Eyre, you're the seconder? Yeah, and back to you, Councillor Tran.
Oh, thank you. That was a lot of names to read out, but I really was excited to be reading them out. It's fantastic to be appointing members to the Youth Council. I'm 25 years old. I was 24 when I got elected. So as a young person, I know, like many of us do, that young people today have a lot to worry about, from rising house prices and the prospect of never being able to afford our own home, to other issues like climate change, where we don't know what our future's going to look like. it's critical that we listen to young people and give them a voice. So I really look forward to being the chair of, or not the chair, but to being the councillor appointed to this committee and assisting the youth mayor, so whoever's appointed out of the applicants as youth mayor. I'd like to again congratulate all the applicants who have been successful. I really look forward to working with you all. And I'd also like to thank everybody else who nominated. We could only accept 15, but for the unsuccessful applicants, officers will be referring them towards other opportunities to be involved with the Nillumbik Council. And I really hope they get a chance to take part in that, and I hope that they get a lot out of it as well, because they were all really strong applicants, and I imagine the panel who made the decision about who to appoint would have had a difficult time doing that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Amtran. Councillor A?
Thank you. I just think it's amazing to have so many young people wanting to influence the direction of Nillumbik. Our young people are our future and want to live in Nillumbik and want to have a voice and be part of the journey. As you can see, our young people have responded by applying, and I look forward to seeing them at work and setting the agenda for youth. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Duffy.
I'm just wondering if I'm able to make an alternative motion.
You could perhaps move an amendment.
An amendment, yes. To add, I'm being new to council, there are some procedures that I'm still getting my head around, but one of the things that I would like to consider making an amendment to is including the other 3 nominees who made good applications and indicated that they were available to attend the meetings. If there's a seconder that would support me on that, that would be the alternative that I'd like to add into this. Do I add it into this motion, or is that a separate motion? Sorry to be asking.
No, that's all right. If the amendment gets majority support of council, it would become part of this motion.
Yeah. So I think that's where, I wish all the nominees could have been given a spot. This is an inaugural program, and I'd like to encourage the people that have put their hand up. It's a long time to wait in 2 years, and there are some very valid people who've put forward that they'd like to be involved, and I'd just like to give them a voice, because the idea of this is giving people a voice. So if there's somebody who would like to second that, that would be great.
Yeah, Governess is just asking what is the amendment, because I just need to type it up.
Okay, so the amendment would be to increase the number of Youth Council Advisory Committee members by 3 to enable the 3 other. Maybe you could help me with the wording of that. You know what I'm trying. My intention is to enable the 3 other candidates.
Okay, Governance is saying, so endorses 18 applicants listed.
18 applicants, yeah. Adding the 3 other names.
Yep,
who said that they were available.
3 additional names.
There were 4. There were 19 people who applied, but one of the candidates indicated that they weren't available to attend the meetings. So that would mean that they wouldn't be available to participate. So that's why I'm suggesting increase it by 3.
Yep. So do you need to type this up, whether or not the amendment gets up? So we'll just take a minute for Governance to get the motion, to get the amendment up.
That's if there's a seconder for it. If there isn't a seconder for it, then you would need to type that
we'll look
up.
for a seconder. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Duffy's amendment?
Sorry, what was that?
Do we have a seconder for Councillor Duffy's amendment?
It would be an even number. If there are 18, that's if everybody attends every meeting. There would probably be times when not everybody would be able to attend the meeting, and I'd imagine that there are other times that... No. Oh, sorry, I'm not meant to speak to that, I'm being told.
It's a decision of council how many we have on the committee.
So it doesn't need to be an odd number?
No, there are times, you know, if there was an even number and everybody's there, the chair would have a casting vote.
Okay.
Or the youth mayor in this instance. Does Councillor Duffy's amendment have a seconder? All right, Councillor Stockman seconds Councillor Duffy's amendment. Do you want to speak to the amendment, Councillor Duffy? And in the meantime, we'll get officers to type up their best.
Thank you. I won't say very much other than that I would really like to see us in this very first instance of our youth council give the opportunity to the people who actually put their hand up to do this. And an extra 3 people is not a huge expense. It does mean that there are more voices in the room, and I think that that's actually a good thing in this instance for our first youth council. I'm not proposing that the youth council needs to stay at 18 in the future. It could go back to 15, but for this inaugural youth council, I'd really like to see all of those who put their hand up to say we'd like to have a voice, and they will put forward passionate reasons for why they'd like to participate, to be given that opportunity to be heard and to advocate for the youth of the Shire and the very different platforms that they indicated were important to them.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Governors have just advised as well that they're suggesting that we would also include in the amendment, if it's okay with yourself and the seconder, Councillor Stockman, that the terms of reference be modified to up to 18 members of the Youth Council, if you're happy with that.
For this first round of the Youth Council, and then I'm suggesting we go back to 15. But I will take advice from governance as to what that should be in the future.
Well, the terms of reference will be 18 until otherwise resolved. Yeah. Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Stockman? Did you want to speak to the amendment, Councillor Stockman?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I just want to thank all the younger people who did put their name down. And I think there's not much difference between 15 and 18, but there's a big difference for those 3 that are missing out. And look, life is tough and people are going to miss out on some things, but we've got the opportunity here to include those 3 in. And I think they will all contribute well to this Youth Council. That's it.
Thanks, Councillor Stockman. Any other councillor wishing to speak to the amendment? Councillor Tran.
Look, I'm sorry, but I am going to speak against this amendment. I think it just comes back to we wouldn't do this for any other advisory committee. This is an advisory committee, that's what it is. We wouldn't do this for the Environment Sustainability Advisory Committee, for the Health and Wellbeing Advisory Committee. I do understand the reason behind doing this, and I do feel for the applicants who missed out. But these aren't primary school kids. These are 15 and older, 15 to 25. They're old enough to understand that sometimes you do miss out. As tough as it is, that's life. And we are providing them with other opportunities to get involved. We're referring them to other programs that are being run by Nillumbik, similar programs. They might not get the pay slip, they might not get a vote in the room, but they will still be involved and they'll still be given those opportunities. There's also the issue of the budget. We are paying youth councillors. I believe it's $500 a year. And again, that is something, that's an issue that's not addressed in this amendment, how we find the budget. It's not much money, but it still has to be taken from somewhere. So I'm not comfortable with the amendment as it stands. Perhaps I could suggest if an amendment were put up that instead made the Youth Council open to observers, which would mean that those other applicants would be able to attend meetings, maybe not speak, not vote, but attend and listen in. I might support that if that were an amendment to the terms of reference to allow observers at Youth Council meetings. But in terms of this amendment, I can't really support it as it stands. So sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Tran. Any other councillor wishing to speak on the amendment? Councillor Payne.
Just wanted to endorse what Councillor Tran was saying. We asked for 15. We got at least 15, which is great news. People that want to take an interest. And I think there's a governance issue if we have even numbers in terms of votes. If they all do turn up, then it gets tricky. So I think it's great news that we've got our 15 successful candidates. And there are 3 others that didn't quite make the list, and yet they're still in the community and still going to be able to contribute. So, yeah, that's why I will not be voting for the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Any other councillor wishing to speak? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. I feel a little bit torn with this because I do really want to see as many young people being involved as possible, and I think the more voices the more diversity we get. But I'm also mindful that up front they knew there was 15 positions and that some people might miss out. I do know through discussions that the young people that did miss out will be supported into other programs, and so I do like the idea of having observer roles, that maybe they might consider doing that if that was a possibility. I have sat on many committees where the numbers are just too big and nothing actually gets achieved because there's too many discussions, there's too many different viewpoints, nobody can agree on things, and I feel that moving it from 15 to 18 might actually just tip that level. And when you've got young people who aren't necessarily as experienced as being on committee meetings, it might actually either overwhelm them or it might actually make them lose interest if they're not feeling that their input is being actioned or that the meetings are moving fast enough. So there's two sides to this, I guess, and I feel that I can't support the three as much as I'd like to, but I would like to see them involved possibly as observers. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillor wishing to speak? I'll just sum up by saying, look, I'd be more than happy, comfortable with having the 3 additional members. You know, there would be room on the table for them. I'd be very surprised if all 15 attended more than perhaps the initial first or second meeting. We've never done this before, so I of course could be wrong. I think having the additional 3 gives another 3 young people an opportunity they might not otherwise ever have again. So look, I would support. I'll be voting in support of the amendment. If it doesn't get up, you know, I would hope that when a vacancy does come up, that, you know, officers reach out to these 3 individuals. I think, you know, they've made the effort. They've put in applications. They've been good applications. They haven't, you know, they've been assessed against the terms of reference and the other applications, and they didn't get scored as high. But I think they should be given a seat at the table, and I'm happy to support the amendment put by Councillor Duffy and Councillor Stockman. So if there's no other discussion, I'll put that amendment to the vote. And it's all those in favour and against. All right, so that amendment is not supported. So we'll go back to the substantive motion, which is moved by Councillor Amtran and seconded by Councillor Eyre. And I believe, Councillor Duffy, you haven't spoken to the substantive motion yet, so I'll give you that opportunity if you'd like it.
No, I'm just wondering for procedural advice, can we call a division on the amendment that just took place?
Yeah, we can. So could we have a division? Councillor Duffy's called a division on the amendment. All those in favour? It's Councillor Duffy, Councillor Stockman, Councillor Perkins. And against, it's Councillor Egan, Councillor Payne, Councillor Eyre and Councillor Amtran. Thank you. Any other councillor wishing to speak to the substantive motion? Councillor Amtran?
I may not be able to do this. Am I able to move an amendment as the original mover, or no? Okay. I might give another councillor a chance to move an amendment to allow observers, but yeah.
If you want to, if you get the support of the seconder, you can just change your motion if you like.
I'd just like to change my motion slightly. So hopefully this is a good middle ground between these two viewpoints. So add a point 4 to the motion, and in point 4 it would say under the membership and chairperson heading in the Youth Advisory Council terms of reference, add a 6th dot point that specifies observers may be present at meetings of the Youth Advisory Council.
So is that like a gallery?
A gallery. Oh. Do you have any proposed?
think that we would always have a gallery for the youth council. That was my assumption. Yeah. Okay.
You know, so is the intent to open the youth council meeting up to one and all, or just to those 3 unsuccessful applicants?
My thinking was everyone, but what do you think, Seconder?
I would maybe let the youth council make that decision.
Okay. Can I ask governance through the chair, is that something that the youth council can decide on themselves, so we don't have to explicitly allow it? Great, thank you. Well, I'll withdraw that. Leave the motion as is, and let the youth council decide at their first meeting.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Trans. So, Councillor Duffy, nobody has spoken to the motion apart from Councillor Duffy and Councillor Eyre. So, Councillor Duffy.
I'm happy to speak to the original motion. Just to follow on, I just would like to congratulate everybody for participating in this. I think it's the most exciting part of tonight's agenda for me, and that's why I didn't want it to be left to the end. I thought I'd bring it up the front. I wish all the nominees could have been given a spot at this inaugural program, as I've mentioned, and I encourage those who are not successful to try again, as their applications were worthy. And I'd encourage them even to think bigger and run as a councillor at the next local government elections, because some of them were 21 in a couple of years' time. You know, they will be probably very capable of being at this table that we're at tonight. I'd like to note the words of an unsuccessful applicant who said, "I believe the most important topic to me is the conservation of land and the inclusion of nature into the developing said land rather than removing it. I care deeply about the drastic increase in housing development." And to that person, I say I agree, and I encourage those who weren't successful to keep contributing to our community. At Eltham High School, the principal says, "You don't need a badge to be a leader," and this is very true. So you don't need to be on the Youth Advisory Committee to be a leader in our community. So keep going, those of you who would like to stand out and strive and make change. Passion for the environment, mental health, equality, respectful relationships, giving back, making a difference, creating a platform for youth and voices for youth in our community was abundantly clear in the applications. And I was really encouraged to see that 3 of our new youth councils share my passion for reconciliation and Aboriginal rights. I welcome them and look forward to working with them and learning from them. And there are a couple of comments that I'd like to raise just to show the calibre of the people that have been selected if I've got some more time. One member has said, "As youth, I feel we are the new coming leaders, dreamers and change makers our world needs. And I would love to be part of a youth council that helps to instigate that change for a better future." Another person said, "I would like to see more events inside and outside of school to get more young people involved, having fun and speaking up about things. I know so many people who are afraid." So they're looking at doing, not just saying. Another person said, "I would like to join the Youth Council to inspire others to be inspired, learning about key issues affecting young people and fighting for a bright future." And one of the really encouraging comments was from an applicant saying, "The greatest skill you can have is consultation. And last year I learnt this through my personal experience with the youth and team and the recreation and leisure teams at Nillumbik. I was one of the impacted youth whose BMX tracks were destroyed. It was heartbreaking for me and others. However, through quality engagement, advocacy and research for the redesign of the Eltham Skate Park, the situation has turned into a positive one. I want to share these learnings with other youth and ensure appropriate engagement on all youth matters is done and has a successful outcome." So I'm really proud of the quality of the people who've put forward their nominations, and so I support the Youth Council.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillor wishing to speak? If not, we'll put... I'll probably just say a couple of words, perhaps, and just that, probably restate that, it's a shame that those 3 other applicants didn't get a look in, but hopefully, and it's up to council to decide how we appoint new members if there's a resignation or absence of one or more members, and I would hope that those 3 who have taken that first big step and made an application for the inaugural Youth Council be encouraged to reapply, and that officers reach out to them and perhaps they'd be prioritised. That's my view on that. It'll be a decision for council into the future. But if there's no other councillor wishing to speak, we'll put that to the vote. No, you can't. I'm sorry. No, you don't get a right to reply either. So we'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? And it's unanimous. On to Officer's Report, CM 29-21, Draft Budget 2021-22. So I'll look for a motion. Councillor Duffy.
I'll move this. I didn't mean to be speaking twice in a row. The budget really is an important document. This is a draft budget and there'll be community consultation and the opportunity for people to speak. To start with, I think it's really important.
Councillor Duffy, can I just get you to move the motion?
Oh yeah, sorry,
then-
I want to
and
move
then
it
we'll-
and we'll
we'll try to
ask
get
for a
it.
seconder. I've got
I reckon
myself
we'll get a seconder, but
confused,
we
yeah.
better try to get one.
So yeah, as per the papers, there's a lot to read there. So essentially it's the, that's enough said.
Yeah, move the motion as per the papers. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Tran. Back to you then, Councillor Duffy.
Sorry, I really have my ill plates on today. To start, I think it's important to acknowledge that Nillumbik Council receives $157 million around about in rates from land that was never ceded by the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung traditional owners. So, you know, I see it as stolen land essentially. And I pose this question to ourselves and to those at home and those here today watching. What do you think we should do as a council and as new resident custodians of this land to make right about this? What are we doing? How can we do more? And what would the Wurundjeri like us to do? And have we asked them, and do we listen and act? And the reason I start with this when we're talking about the draft budget is yesterday I had the great privilege of being able to attend an event on the banks of the Yarra River down at Laughing Waters, which is Woiwurrung name is called Garambi Barn. And Auntie Joy Murphy was there and she welcomed me and she welcomed everybody else in attendance. And I cried and she was very emotional and she gave me this gum leaf. This is a manna gum leaf, which was part of her welcome. And she spoke about the importance of the land. She spoke about what it means to her. And she spoke about what it meant to her father, who wasn't recognised he wasn't recognised as an Australian. So for me, this weighs heavily on me at how we spend our money and what we do as a council. So I just want to keep Auntie Joy and the Wurundjeri in the top of my mind when I'm making decisions about this. And I'm just wanting to look at the $57 million that we have and, you know, what percentage. I've asked council to come back to say, you know, what percentage of this money do we actually spend with Wurundjeri and on First Nations and reconciliation issues at the moment. So just to quickly get back, so council rates provide services. I'd like to thank all the residents and commercial ratepayers of Nillumbik for your contribution to caring for our community. Your rates enable council to do the work that it does and in looking after our people, our place and our future. Page 9 of the draft budget documents a pie graph and it shows how every $100 of rates collected is spent across 12 main allocation areas. So have a look at it. The top expenditure is roads, firstly, roads, footpath and traffic with about $15. Then secondly, it's waste and recycling with about $14. Third, the big category is recreational leisure, which is just $11. And then fourth, environment, parks and open space, which is about $10 for every $100 of our budget. So as a new councillor, I'm interested in the draft budget, of which there have been many conversations that we've had, and one of my practical promises to voters during the election was to stop wasteful spending, and this is where I'd like to go back to the last council where there was about $180,000 spent on a new Nillumbik logo, which I didn't think we needed, and $46,000 on 5 flagpoles in Main Road, Eltham, that many residents and traders didn't want. In this budget, we are proposing a rate increase of 1.5%, and the previous council didn't increase the rates to the capping that the state government enables, and that's come to us at a cost, and that collective cost to ratepayers is $6,419,000 and a few extra dollars, and that's unavailable to us for services and in being able to spend money in the way that we might like to in this budget. The budget also does indicate that there will be borrowings. There are headlines for me. I'm running out of time to be able to talk about those. one of the things that I'm hoping, there was a resident in Diamond Creek who spoke to me during the election campaign of the double rates that they pay on their vacant block, and I trust that this council's plan to reduce this differential will help them and help others in that situation, and it's a demonstration that we are listening as a new council. So when it comes to borrowing, I'm cautious, as someone at some time in the future needs to repay the debt. So roughly $6 of every $100 that we have in our budget is spent on repaying loans. So that's a good thing, though we do need to borrow money to be able to do many of the things that we want, particularly to apply for grants where we need to dollar match those. So the headlines for me in this budget, and I hope residents will be happy to, with this, these major initiatives are for council to employ an Indigenous liaison officer and work towards a reconciliation action plan, a heritage review, secondly, and applying heritage protection to places that should be protected. Thirdly, undertaking a neighbourhood character study, which should give residents more voice on planning matters to oppose inappropriate development. Fourthly, a substantial capital works program of over $88 million over the next 5 years. And fifthly, I'd like to see us work towards beautification of our streets and our public spaces with more vegetation and street tree canopies to improve our eroding tree canopy. So having a budget and spending the money that we have is really important. I just want to make sure that we spend it wisely. So lastly, you know, everybody is invited to give us your feedback. And there are two ways of doing that. You can give feedback on this budget.
Councillor Duffy, your time's up.
Yep, okay.
Councillor Rev Jonathan.
Thank you. I'll just speak briefly. So we've got a 1.5% increase in rates in this budget. So that's equivalent to $1.05 million extra revenue that we'll be getting in the next financial year. A lot of people tell me they pay high rates in Nillumbik, and I do understand for a lot of people the actual dollar value that gets paid is quite high. But we actually do have quite limited funds here. It comes down to the population. When you've got a small number of people paying a lot of rates each, it's a much smaller amount of revenue than you'd have from a lot of people paying a little bit less each. That's the dilemma we've got here in Nillumbik. Unfortunately, if we do want to fund all the services that our community needs, if we want to be able to make a positive difference for our community, well, then we do need that money. So that's why the rates are going up. There's a lot I would have liked to see in this budget that we just simply weren't able to fit in, such as dust mitigation measures for unsealed roads. Again, we just have limited funds and we weren't able to find the money for that one in this budget. Maybe that's something we can do down the track. Once we've got our council plan in place and we've got a more strategic outlook for what this group of 7 councillors wants to achieve, I really hope that's something that can guide future budgets and make sure that there's money allocated to the projects that we really do want to complete for our community. So I look forward to getting the council plan done with the community's input, and I also look forward to hearing the community's input on the draft budget that we've got here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Trans. Any other councillor wishing to speak? No. Look, I might just 1.5% increase in rates. Nobody wants to see the general rate take go up, but until you're on council, it's sort of difficult to understand how the system works. But council's revenue source, largely is rates. Rates is a very, very big part of it. So it's a 1.5% increase in that number that council levies to landowners. It doesn't mean that your rates will go up by 1.5% or down by 1.5%. It's all tied to your capital improved value. So probably for most ratepayers, what's the most significant part of any change in their rates bill or rates notice is the most recent state government property evaluations. So, if your property has gone up by, say, 10%, your rates are tied to that property revaluation. So, your rates will certainly go up more than perhaps 1.5%. Conversely, if your property value has gone down, you might end up getting a discount. So it's difficult for people to, generally everyone looks at the bottom line of what their rates bill. If they're paying more money, it's not a good sign, but that's not the case for everybody. There is a movement above and below what your rate bill was last year. That's in terms of the general rate take, but we do note that there has been an increase in the waste management charge and some other service charges, which would have an impact on that as well. So the budget will be put out now for public comment, and we'll listen to, we'll read the submissions. We'll also have an opportunity for people to make submissions at a community consultation meeting, and so I'm happy to support the draft budget, and I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thanks, councillors. The next item is the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, February 2021. Looking for a motion. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. That council notes the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 15th of February 2021.
Thanks, Councillor Eyre. Do we have a seconder? Councillor
I'll
Payne?
second that.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Eyre.
I don't need to say anything,
Okay.
thank you.
Councillor Payne. Any councillor wishing to speak? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimous. Next item on the agenda is Officer Report CM 031-21, the Councillor Gift Policy. I'm looking for a mover. Councillor Egan.
I move as per the papers.
Thanks, Councillor Egan. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duffy. Thank you. Back to you,
thank
Councillor Egan. Do you wish to speak to the matter? Councillor Duffy.
Only to say that I think this is a good thing, and it's transparency, and that's what we've promised to the community, that we want to be upfront so they can see that we're being honest in our transactions.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillor wish to speak to the Councillor Gift Policy? Councillor Eyre.
I agree that it's good to have something like this in place. It states where we sit as councillors and keeps us in check, I think, but also keeps the community in check, and thinking that we can't be bribed with copious amounts of coffee. No, lots chocolates and wine. Yeah, so no, it keeps us on the straight line. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillor? Look, I'll just say in my 11 years on council, I've never been offered a gift. The gift policy sort of requires us to declare a gift of $50 or more. It's an irrelevant policy to me, but you know, if somebody does offer me a gift one day, I'll have to consider this policy and certainly try not to breach it, or definitely won't breach it. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimous. Thanks, councillors. On to the next one, which is a declaration of the Eltham Town Business Precinct Special Rate 2021-2026. Looking for a motion from Councillor Payne.
I would like to move the motion as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Payne, and a seconder. Councillor Eyre. Thanks, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Payne, back to you.
I don't have much to say about this. This is a non-contentious motion, a special charge scheme for the traders of Eltham, and on that basis I think we should move the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say that this is not money for council. Council collects it on behalf of the Eltham Town Business, the economic for them, and then we actually give it back to them. So it's not council's money at all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillor wishing to speak? I might just say, councillors, I certainly support the motion, but I did get a phone call. I don't know if any other councillor did. I got a phone call from someone doing some research on behalf of the Eltham Chamber of Commerce, just asking some questions around, you know, they're doing some marketing and some engagement, just around ideas that, you know, I might have for the future. And one of the ideas I put to them is that, you know, into the future it'd be nice to see the special rate area broadened beyond what it currently is, which is, you know, a small part of what most people understand to be the business district of Eltham. So I think if they broadened the area up Bridge Road to include all those other businesses, the industrial areas, Bunnings, the whole lot, that they could market more successfully the whole of Eltham, rather than just concentrating on what we currently understand is the town centre around the train station. So that was a major bit of feedback I gave to them, but it was a really good discussion. We spoke for length for about half an hour, so it's great they're doing that engagement. Having said that, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Hurstbridge Village Business Precinct Special Rate 2021 to 26. Do we have a motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as per the papers. It's rather a long recommendation, but I'll speak to it in a moment.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'm looking for a seconder. And Councillor Duffy is indicating she is indeed seconding. Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Egan, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this was actually slightly contentious. We had some objectors that came and spoke to, I think it was the last MNC, and as a result of that, we organised a meeting for all the traders in Hurstbridge to air some of their differences with the current committee, and that had a very good outcome, and as a result we're reducing the first year's contribution by 50%, and then after that it will revert back to the originally suggested rate, which was actually the same as last year but just increased with CPI. Hurstbridge is quite different to Eltham and Diamond Creek because of the numbers of traders. So even though the rate is considerably less, there's considerably less people and businesses to contribute to it. But they do certainly punch far beyond their weight in terms of numbers per dollar per business. And I love the way that we keep the special village feel in Hurstbridge with everything that they do. It's very uncommercial and it's very DIY and very sort of boutique, and I love the way that everybody gets together. A lot of people were at the Saturday night, I think it's the second edition of Soundbites. The last one was cancelled due to rain, but Saturday night Hurstbridge was jumping and it was fantastic. Everybody had their chairs out and they were listening to all these fantastic, the very first band was only 12 and 13-year-olds, and it was just fantastic to see a community like that get together, and this is just an extension of that. So I'm totally in support of what they've all agreed to do together. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Egan. Councillor Duffy?
I'll just be very short, and I'm saying that I think it's a great thing that there's been a chance for council to come to a compromise with the traders who were expressing that they were not wanting to pay the full rate this year, and that's been able to happen. So I'm supporting what the traders associations do to enable marketing of the Shire in all of the different township pockets where that happens. So happy to support this. Thank you for the work that you've done too, Karen, with talking with the local traders in Hurstbridge to be able to facilitate that with council officers.
It's a pleasure, and I paid for my own coffee.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillor wishing to speak? Look, I'll just congratulate the Hurstbridge Traders Association. Councillor Egan is right; they certainly do punch above their weight. There were a number of objectors to the scheme. This isn't a scheme. It's administered by council, but it's driven really by the Hurstbridge Traders Association. So they took on the feedback, they amended their budget, and they're now offering that 50% discount for the next 12 months, which I think it's a great example of a well-run trade association, as is the Eltham and the Diamond Creek ones, mind you. They're all good. Ian Mason, the president, Mason White McDougall, he did contact me shortly after the last meeting and indicated that he would be engaging heavily with all businesses, particularly those ones who weren't supportive of the special rate, as was put at the Future Olympic Committee meeting. I think when we heard the submissions, and certainly they've done just that, and they're offering a 50% discount for the first year. And look, they do a great job. The way that Hurstbridge market their township, I think is to be commended. And the more support that council can give, the better. noting that all council does in the area of administering a special rate is we collect the money from their members and we send it back to the Traders Association, and they decide as a committee and as an association how to expend those monies. So it's no money really coming to council coffers at all. It's collected by council and sent back to the association. So I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. The next item is the National General Assembly of Local Government 2021 and calls for motions.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the motion. Firstly, that Council resolves to adopt and lodge the following motions to the Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly to be held in Canberra on the 20 to the 23rd of June 2021. That this National General Assembly calls on the Australian Government to develop appropriate funding mechanisms to enable local governments to establish community hubs for the co-location of key services such as education, youth services, counselling and community health in order to deliver comprehensive integrated support to local communities as they recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, and B, that this National General Assembly calls on the Australian Government to make available greater funding either through the extension of its Smart Cities and Suburbs program or a new initiative to enable local governments and their communities to implement the latest networking and monitoring technology in their efforts to improve bushfire preparedness and climate resilience. 2, resolves to amend the council meeting date from 22 June 21 to 29 June 21.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Ramcharan.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to be putting forward this motion today. Starting off with the call for funding for establishing community hubs.
Sorry, Councillor Ramcharan.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. You are the seconder. I should.
I am the seconder.
Give Councillor Egan the opportunity to speak to her motion.
Oh.
She just read
out the motion. She read out the motion.
So sorry, Councillor Egan. Back to you.
Thank you, and much as I probably concur with Councillor Ramcharan's comments, I'll leave, actually, as he's so keen on talking to the community hubs, I'll leave that one to you, and I will speak to the second motion because that was actually mine. So at the moment, bushfire mitigation is a shared responsibility between council and a range of other stakeholders, including community, external agencies and other levels of government. And we are also in the process of developing our new council climate action plan. So this undertaking will, in both the development and the implementation, emphasise the community-centred approach. So there's a number of products on the market with highly sensitive sensor detection capabilities that include fire detection, air quality and flood monitoring. They can also be used to monitor biodiversity in a given area. So the federal government actually funded a study in the Latrobe Valley, which is what this actually relates to, or partly. And it's a new device that looks like a little mini R2-D2, about yay high, and they spread them out geographically in the Latrobe Valley as a trial run. And what it does is Telstra are working with this device, so it actually sends a signal to your phone when it's activated. And if you have an ignition point, instantly that will come through on the app, so it'll go to obviously external agencies like CFA, etc. But it also goes to every member in the community who has a mobile phone, obviously. But not only does it detect fire ignition points, it also detects asthma and pollution in the air. So when we get those messages to stay indoors because it's not a good air day, that comes through straight away on your phone. And there's heat messages. There's a whole raft of indicators that come through on these devices. In the trials in the Latrobe Valley, 2 fires were caught nearly instantaneously from when they ignited to the point where they didn't get much bigger than the size of this desk. They were put out so quickly, way before any smoke would indicate that there was a problem. So that's why I put up this motion. this should be in every fire council, at fire risk council in the country, and it's been proven, and not just in this study, but in other platforms as well. So I think we need to have more of these sorts of things in terms of mitigation, so we're not just picking up the pieces all the time. If we can stop even a small percentage of these fires from starting at a pretty reasonable cost, it's well worth it. So that's why I put up this motion. So I'm hopeful it will get unanimous support, and then that it also gets accepted, because it's not just us putting in these motions, they then have to be accepted to be put forward. So I'm hoping this goes all the way and we get there and actually get it happening. So that's why I'm putting up the motion. Over to you, Councillor Ramcharan.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. So I will continue talking about motion A. So we're calling for funding to establish community hubs for the co-location of key services such as education, youth services, counselling and community health. So that will involve working with community organisations, possibly such as Health Ability, if we do end up with that funding, which will be a really fantastic way for us to support community health. There have been a lot of calls for a youth hub in Nillumbik. In fact, I had a phone call just before I left the house to come to this meeting today from a resident who was asking about setting up a youth hub. So there's definitely an appetite for that in the community. So let's cross our fingers that we do manage to get some funding for that to happen. But yeah, just to, I guess, flag that it is something that the community wants. It's really important to have those safe spaces for young people. In terms of the second motion that we're putting forward, I agree with what Councillor Egan said about you trying to utilise the best technology and the latest technology available. These kinds of advancements can make such a massive difference to an emergency response, and I think it doesn't just count for emergencies. There are plenty of things that council could be doing we could be utilising the latest technology for, and this is one example of those things. And the motion also mentions climate resilience, which again, looking at the latest technologies and networking to make us more resilient to the inevitable effects of climate change. So I'm really pleased to be putting these forward, and let's hope that they are successful in getting passed in Canberra.
Thanks, Councillor Ramcharan. Any other councillor wishing to speak? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I'm also really pleased with these motions, but particularly for the A1, that we're looking at having community hubs, which is like a one-stop shop. So you go in for one thing and you might come out enrolled in so many different things, or have access to services you didn't know existed. So it's a value add, and it encourages connections, and we know that a connected community is more resilient, and so being able to go in even just to sit down and have a coffee and chat to people is really valuable as well. So I'm really excited about these and happy to support it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other councillor wishing to speak? I'll just, if nobody else is speaking, just to amend the meeting date from the 22nd of June to the 29th of June, moves it back a week on the basis that I'll certainly be going to the National General Assembly, potentially the Deputy Mayor as well, and any other council that wants to go. The last 4 years saw I think the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor go each year, or most years, and other councillors as well. Yeah, so there's an opportunity for other councillors to go. There's someone who went every year, I think, except for last year. Well, it was COVID. 3 years. It didn't happen last year. So happy to put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. We will move now on to John Street and Bridge Street discontinuance. 03521. Officer reports. I'm looking for a motion. And Councillor
I'd like to move the motion and read out the recommendation. Is there part 2 to this as well? Okay. So, the motion is that Council 1, acting under Section 206 and Clause 3 of Schedule 10 of the Local Government Act 1989, having complied with Sections 207A and 223 of the Act, and being of the opinion that the sections of the road reserve shown hatched on the plan are not reasonably required for public use, to discontinue the road and take ownership of the resultant land. And 2, requests officers commence a separate process to discontinue the road at the Bridge Street end between the northwestern corner of 91 John Street and the southwestern corner of 8 Plumtree Close, being an area of approximately 58 square metres.
Thanks, Councillor Payne. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duffy. Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Payne.
So there are 2 items on the agenda tonight to do with John Street and Bridge Street, the eastern ends of these streets. It's been a long process. This is years in the making. This is not the end of the process, but we are moving towards the end of that process of simply declaring that these are no longer roads and to rezone them. This is purely the discontinuance motion. I am aware that interested parties, there are many interested parties, some in the gallery tonight, keen to find out how Council will vote on this. I am proposing that we go ahead with this because it's an important declaration that the streets are no longer trafficable as roads. And I do want to point out that neither motion, neither item on the agenda prejudices any other actions that are currently underway as regards these roads. So this process will be gazetted if it is approved and formally lodged. That will take some time, and beautification will take place of these areas. So basically, I'd like to support the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Payne. Councillor Duffy.
I think this is a good thing. When I went out to John Street and Bridge Street, I wanted to walk around and I spoke to people in Plumtree Close, and it just makes sense to me that this is not a road, it's a walking path, and it's not really wide enough for a road anyhow. So, you know, with all the interconnection, this will provide on a long-term basis. I think it's a good thing, and I'm hoping that the residents in the area will be happy with that as well.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillor? I'll just say I'll support certainly. So the last council started this process, nearly got it right, and I think Councillor Payne has made it absolutely right. There is an additional cost to commence this separate new process, but I think there's good argument that it needs to happen anyway. It would have been ideal to have it all in the process from the start, to include this extra little bit, but you know, certainly happy to support the motion, which comes as a result of resident feedback. So I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried, unanimous. And next on to the exhibition of Amendment C126 nil to the Nillumbik Planning Scheme, and that's a part rezoning of Bridge and John Street. And looking for a motion, Councillor Payne.
You have one here. I'd like to move the motion, recommending that Council 1 notes the submissions to Amendment C126 nil. 2, request the Minister for Planning appoint an independent planning panel to consider the amendment and refer all submissions to the panel appointed in accordance with Section 23(1)(b) of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. 3, prepares a submission to the panel appointed that considers all submissions and which does not oppose the extension to the area proposed to be rezoned to include that land between Bridge Street and the corner of 8 Plumtree Close, Eltham. And 4, notifies all submitters and owners and occupiers of the land affected by the proposed amendment of Council's resolution.
Thanks, Councillor Payne. Seconder, Councillor Duffy. Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Payne.
This would be item 2, part 2, so to speak, of the process of rezoning the land. It's a fairly straightforward process of stating that these 2 small corners of Eltham are to be beautified and rezoned. And on that basis, I think I'd like to support the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Payne. Councillor Duffy.
Yes, I'd just like to say that it does make sense to me too, that, you know, the extension goes right up to the end of Plumtree Close. And that this area will be beautified and will become public park and recreational zone. I note that Tim's here and he was speaking for the Cook family, who have a different perspective, where they would like to see not all of this land go into public parks and recreation. And I'm going to say today that I will be voting for this to go through, and I'm hoping that the way that council will beautify the area and landscape it will be something that you will be happy with, as this has been my understanding that it's not been land that you've owned but land that you've used. I think that that's all I'd like to say, but I'm hoping that that will be something that you know that the land will be something good to look at, and not something nasty will be built in that space.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillor wishing to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried. Unanimous. The next item is Nillumbik Customer First Strategy Annual Review and Update. Councillor Payne.
Yes, indeed. I'd like to move the motion that Council 1 notes the report which highlights the second year implementation and delivery of the Nillumbik Customer First Strategy 2019-2022, and 2 receives an annual progress update on the final year of implementing the Nillumbik Customer First Strategy 2019-2022 in March 2022.
Thanks, Councillor Payne. Looking for a seconder, and I have one in Councillor Eyre. Thanks, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Payne.
I have nothing much to add to this. I think it's a worthy policy and program to keep going with, and all I would suggest is that those people who think that customer first means that we only regard the residents of the Shire as customers, that's not what the word means. It's simply the people that interact with the council. It means everyone, and that's simply the word chosen. So we're not the dead hand of capitalism. We treat everyone as people in the Shire.
Thanks, Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I agree with the word customer, but we understand that to mean community and resident and a business. I'd also like to mention too that we see this strategy as being embedded across business as usual, which is really important. So it's not just one area that's focusing on improving. And I think that any organisation that doesn't reflect and make change will extinct itself, I think. So this is really important that we get this right and we continue to improve and to reflect on the things that we're doing well and things that we can improve on. So this is a way of doing that.
Thanks, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillor? Councillor Duffy.
I can't help myself tonight, sorry. I think this is really important, and I love that we're looking at being customer-centric. Again, it's been spoken about the word customer. I do see us as community, and in my involvement here at council, I want to see community put at the heart of what council does. So I understand that this is about customer service delivery, but for me, the big things that are important in this, and if I could just read out a note in the discussion paper, it says, as community expectations. So it's not as customer expectations, it's as community expectations. So we get back to community. As community expectations of council continue to change, we need to listen and adapt to the way we interact with our community to ensure the experiences we deliver to them are positive, solutions-focused, easy, empathetic, accessible, and add value. None of us here want to be part of a council that frustrates and exhausts our community. So that's where this customer first strategy is really important. Nillumbik services, we want them to be easy to use, and we want to ensure that the people that live, work, learn and study here at all times will be treated with care and respect, and so will our environment that we live in. So yeah, those 4 customer commitments, or I'd like to say community commitments, are important: empathetic, consistent, effective and simple. So I will be supporting this, and I am grateful to the work that council officers have put into having this customer first strategy happening, so we don't have to start it as a new council.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillor? We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Next item is the Quarterly Risk and Safety Report, December 2020. Councillor Tran.
Yes, I'd like to move that Council notes the summary of the confidential Quarterly Risk and Safety Report for the December 2020 quarter, and 2, resolves that the attached report, Attachment 1, remains confidential in accordance with Section 3(1)(a) and F of the Local Government Act 2020.
Thanks, Councillor Tran. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Duffy, thank you. Back to you, Councillor Tran.
Nothing to say. It's quite a procedural motion.
Thanks, Councillor Trans. Councillor Duffy?
I'd just like to add that one of the important things with this report is a comment where it says that ensuring risk management is seen as the responsibility of everyone. So that's all staff, and that risk management is everyone's business. And I kind of would like to extend that further to go to our community to say, you know, when you do see a problem, let us know so that we can make sure that that risk is mitigated. And just looking at the different types of incident reports that have happened, they cover a whole variety of places. So, you know, you can't improve what you're not managing. So I suppose I won't say any more because I can rattle on, but just that risk is everybody's business. So we all have a part to play in making sure that we minimise the risks that we're exposed to as a council and as a community.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillor? Go to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried, unanimous. The next report is the amendment C13 or C131, Neil. The amending the planning scheme to regulate earthworks in the Green Wedge.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation that Council reconfirms its intention to regulate earthworks in the Green Wedge by requesting the Minister for Planning under Section 8A of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 to authorise the preparation and exhibition of Amendment C131 nil to the Nillumbik Shire Planning Scheme. 2. Exempts itself from direct notification to owners occupiers pursuant to Section 19 in brackets 1A of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. A notification of Amendment C131 nil should be provided via the following means. A. On the Participate Nillumbik website. B. Through social media posts and at least one media release. And C. Advertisement in one metropolitan newspaper, The Age or the Herald Sun.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. That's seconded. Councillor Trans. Back to you, Councillor Egan.
Thank you. Not that there's anyone in the gallery except my good friend Jim and one other. Many locals know that back in July 2020 at an OCM, we requested the Planning Minister to introduce into the schedule for the Green Wedge and Rural Conservation Zone 100 cubic metre limit of clean fill due to the soil dumping that had been going on in Chapel Lane. Subject to a subsequent resolution by Council, officers did lodge a request for authorisation of Amendment C130 nil for interim controls and C131 nil for permanent controls on the 17th of August 2020. C130 nil was refused by the Minister, but at the same time he did give authorisation for preparation of Amendment C131 nil. The reason we put the second point is that if we were to mail out directly to all Green Wedge owners and occupiers, it would cost something in the vicinity of $16,000, I think is in the papers, which is why we've gone for the other three options. It's a red hot issue and I know the word will get out very, very quickly and it already has. Most of the residents, or all of the residents, know this is in the offing, and I'm sure between Ben and myself we can help expedite the matter in getting it out. So this is to stop what has been occurring forever and a day in Nillumbik, and that is the dumping of soil. And we're talking on a scale of 300 trucks a day in this particular case. So this isn't a landowner like myself who's simply filling in their swimming pool with 10 trucks. This is absolutely mammoth. So you're talking about filling in dams, you've got silt runoff into waterways and creeks, a total changed landscape from where it's been for 100 years to what they were doing, and without getting into particular cases or for money. So there's only one other shire in the state that has a mechanism to control that, and this will mean that we are the second. So again, I'm hoping that all councils will support this matter and that we can get this actually done as soon as practicable, because we do already have another one that's ramping up at the moment that I've got staff investigating. So it's a constant battle to keep on top of this, and it takes an extraordinary amount of council resources, time and money. And if we don't have to worry about this one issue anymore, it'll actually save us hundreds of thousands of dollars looking into the future. So I'm hoping I'll get support from everybody here. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Regan. Councillor Tran.
I'm really pleased to be putting this motion forward tonight. Dumping really is an issue in Nillumbik. We've seen what's happened just recently. I've been getting complaints left, right and centre from residents about dumping going on, either next door or down the road. Sometimes we find that it's not legal and action gets taken, and other times it simply is something they're allowed to do, and our hands are tied. So this motion is about taking a stand and saying, well, this is not what we want in Nillumbik, this is not what we want in our Greenwedge Shire. And I'm really pleased to be putting this forward, because we know that our community loves the Greenwedge and wants to protect it. Just in terms of, and Karen touched on this, in terms of exempting ourselves from direct notification to owners and occupiers, that would cost an enormous amount of money for something that is quite technical. This amendment is very technical. Any input on it would also need to be quite technical. I do hope we get a good amount of input from the community. But in terms of the process itself, the advertising it this way will, in my view, be sufficient. And obviously down the track, once the process has completed, hopefully it'll be a good news story that we can really spread the word and say, well, this is what council's done. We have backed up the community and said that dumping is not okay in the Greenwedge, and I feel like that is something most residents will be able to get on board with.
Thanks, Councillor Tran. Any other councillor wishing to speak? No? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Nillumbik Shire submission to 10-year social and affordable housing strategy is the next item. Looking for Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to recommend that Council 1 adopts the attached submission with attachment 2 called the 10-year social and affordable housing strategy discussion paper, and directs council officers to formally lodge the adopted submission with the Department of Health and Human Services, Homes Victoria, by 9 April 2021, and makes the adopted submission publicly available on Council's Participate Nillumbik website.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Do we have a seconder, Councillor Stockman? Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. This is something that's, social housing is something that's dear to my heart, and I have failed to bring some of the statistics that I wanted to bring with me tonight about how Nillumbik fits within the state in terms of social housing. But there seems to be a lot of confusion about what this actually means, social and affordable housing. I'd just like to go through some definitions to kind of clear that up. So what is the difference between community, public and social housing? There's a belief that I kind of belong to this thought as well, that we need strong community and public housing system, and sometimes the difference gets a bit confusing. So the definitions that I'm happy to relay as I understand them to be, community is housing that's owned, controlled or managed by not-for-profit organisations and regulated by the Victorian Housing Registrar. Some specialise in helping specific groups like people with disability, women, singles and older people. Tenants can pay between 25 and 30% of their gross income and are eligible to receive Commonwealth rent assistance. I know that there is a permit application for community housing in my ward at the moment that has been passed. So these things are good things. People need help. When we look at public housing, the definition of that I've been able to come across is public housing is owned and managed by the Department of Health and Human Services, overseen by the Director of Housing, who is responsible to the Minister of the Day. Tenants pay no more than 25% of their total household income or market rate, whichever's lower. Then when we come to social housing, this is an umbrella term for both public and community housing, and that's why we use the term the most, as it's as they're both integral to the housing system. So I'm grateful to have had the opportunity, not me personally, but that council has had the opportunity to put a submission in, and that our council officers will be doing this, and that this is something that we're actually talking about so that we can work towards something that is more social and equitable. I think that's probably all I'll say.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Stockman?
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, I'd just like to say that when it comes to the states, we're actually last for a social housing percentage to normal households. So we're way below any other state not way below, but we're last in any other state or territory in Australia. And Nillumbik, which I'm assuming would be even worse than that when it comes to social housing. So it's something that we need to really address, and something we need to look at this 10-year plan and strategy and have a strategy in place. I know my fellow councillors will be looking at social housing. I don't think it can be done on an ad hoc basis. We need to really put a strategy together and something we can really aim for. We really let ourselves down in this area. We're leaders in a lot of other areas, in open spaces and in climate change action and a lot of different areas. As the Green Wedge, lungs of Melbourne, we are leaders. But when it comes to this area, we're certainly letting ourselves down. So it's something we should really look into.
Thanks, Councillor Stockman. Any other councillor wishing to speak? Councillor Rev Jonathan.
I'd like to thank officers for writing the submission. I think it's very well written, and I'm really pleased to be approving it today. Social and affordable housing are much needed in Victoria. It's not fair, in my view, and I hope in all of our view, it's not fair to have people out on the streets. We need to provide people with a roof over their heads. It's a basic human right. And the project that the Victorian government's doing here will hopefully move us in the right direction to making sure that more people can sleep comfortably during the night. In terms of some of the things that the submission talks to, and I can't go through it all because it is very extensive and very thorough, but just to note that in terms of the planning scheme and planning, we already have policies about developer contributions for when native vegetation is removed. So when a developer removes native vegetation, they actually have to pay offsets for that. We can't do the same thing currently with affordable housing, but what our submission does speak to is giving councils the ability to mandate developer contributions. So when a developer does a development, council can actually ask them to contribute to the cost of creating more affordable housing in the area, which is very good policy, in my view. The submission also talks about the stigma that's attached to social housing and ways that we can better communicate with the community and educate the community to reduce that stigma. The submission suggests that a salt and pepper style to social housing would be a good way of doing that, and what that means is having social housing dotted throughout the community rather than creating one huge big ugly block of apartments, which seems to be the method that's unfortunately used quite often. And when that's done, it means that the social housing really stands out to people, and people point to this big ugly building and say that's the social housing, and it means that the people living in it can't become part of that community, whereas having the salt and pepper style where they just live in amongst the community as regular people, it means that they can be much more integrated, much more acknowledged as people, which is what they are, and it really helps to remove that stigma. So they're two parts of the submission that I'm really pleased to see in there, and yeah, happy to be supporting this tonight.
Thanks, Councillor Entran. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Ray?
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to also point out that there are so many reasons people find themselves sleeping rough. And so this allows for residents to either age in place, for carers with adult dependents to find suitable accommodation. It might be for women fleeing domestic violence, or it could even be for young people unable to live safely with family. So I think that this is important for Nillumbik to be looking at, and let's hope that our feedback is received positively. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? Just reading the last page, the Appendix 1, the demographics, it's interesting. I've never seen it presented quite like this, but in recent years, more people have moved out of the Shire than have moved in, reducing population growth to well below the average for Melbourne. The net loss between 2010 and 2016 was 1,761 people. Nillumbik's growth rate is 0.5% per year, but among people aged 65 years and over, it is 3.7%. The population forecast is for low growth and an older population. This is based on the assumptions that the population in Nillumbik is driven partly by natural increase and partly by migration in local and overseas. Nillumbik has an ageing population. The number of people aged 65 years and over will increase by 73% from 8,143 in 2016 to 14,155 in 2036. So it's some really interesting demographics there, and there's more throughout the submission, but it is a very good submission, and I thank officers for putting that together. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried, unanimous, and that's halfway through, councillors. That's one pack of papers. The next item is the Road Management Plan Review, CM 141-21. Looking for a motion, Councillor Stockman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move this motion as per the papers.
Thanks, Councillor Stockman. Do we have a seconder? And we do in Councillor Ramcharan. Councillor Stockman.
Just like to say, with the team we have, a smaller team, such a big Shire, there's a lot of roads here and they do a fantastic job. With this item on the agenda, we're not going to be losing any services. We're going to be maintaining those great services they do. So I'd like to actually say we do well, and there is a difference between state roads and council roads, and sometimes that gets a bit confusing which is which, but if I speak for my ward alone, we've done very, very well, council, with the fixing of our roads. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Councillor Stockman. Councillor Ramcharan.
Yeah, just wanted to say, unfortunately, the plan is quite limited in scope. There's been a lot of valuable input that's been out of scope, and I guess that's the nature with these very bureaucratic plans that we've got. But I just wanted to say that that input has been captured, it's been noted, and we will come back to that when we do other plans and strategies. So please don't think that your input's been lost, because it hasn't. We will come back to that down the track. In particular, there's been a lot of commentary about improving rural roads in terms of amenity, fire safety, overhanging branches, keeping the roadside tidy. There's been input about dust on unsealed roads. Hopefully these are all things that we can address down the track. They're not in scope for this one, but we haven't forgotten about your submissions.
Thanks, Councillor Ramcharan. Any other councillor wishing to speak? We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Next item is the Climate Action Plan Development Community Consultation. Councillor Ramcharan.
Yes, I'm very keen to move this one. That Council receives and notes the results of the 2020 Climate Action Plan Survey, Attachment 1. 2, makes the 2020 Climate Action Plan Survey report available to the public on Council's website. And 3, notes the time frame for the development of the Climate Action Plan.
Thanks, Councillor Ramcharan. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Eyre. Back to you, Councillor Ramcharan.
Thank you. Well, climate change is an issue quite dear to me. I think it's an incredibly important thing for us to address as a council. I was quite doubtful when I first saw the survey. I wasn't sure if we'd be able to get the input we needed to put together a strong plan. But that includes questions such as, would you pay more rates in order to tackle climate change? And I saw that as a very, very loaded question that would be difficult for somebody to answer in an informed way. But I must say I've been quite surprised at the insight we've been able to get from this survey. We've learned about what people are already doing to reduce their carbon footprint. We've learned about the things that they haven't done yet, and we've learned about the barriers that stop them from doing those things. So the barriers include cost, effort, administration, etc. And now that we know what those barriers are, we as a council can focus on helping people overcome those barriers and facilitating people to make that transition to a more sustainable lifestyle. We've also found that people believe climate change is important, and surprisingly, almost half of the survey respondents said they would be willing to pay more rates in order to tackle climate change. So it really does show that this is an issue that's incredibly important to our community. People have said that they're concerned about agricultural land and the impacts that climate change will have on that. And I think that shows that we've got an opportunity here, especially in Nillumbik, where we've got a lot of rural land to work on improving soil health and sequestering more carbon into the soil. There's a lot of stuff that came out of that survey that can't inform policy, and I guess this is where we have to draw the line between community consultation, where the community helps to inform policy, versus community consultation, where it's more about learning about our community and then developing a policy that responds to that. So, for example, asking people to comment on what our climate targets should be without giving context on our ability to meet the targets or the results of either meeting them or not meeting them. Whatever response we get from that would not be well informed enough to be able to be the basis for developing a policy. So I guess we have to learn to draw that line and understand that the policy is ours to set, but this the results of this survey really give us a good idea of where the community's at, how we can bring them along with us, and how we can respond to community needs in the climate plan that we're in the process of developing. There are other questions such as, how should we address climate change internally, and how should we embed it across the organisation? Again, can't be used to develop policy. There were also some questions that asked for opinions on matter of fact, such as, do you believe in climate change? Do you think it's driven by human activity? Again, we can't develop any policy from that because you're asking for an opinion on something that is a proven fact. But it does help us to understand how the plan will be received by the community. The community's shown us that it will be received well, but it's also shown us that we do have to put some focus on bringing a wider range of people along on the journey with us on this. I really look forward to the next stage of this process, which is the actual development of the plan. I'm sure all councillors will have different views on what should be in the plan and different ideas. Personally, I hope that as part of the plan we are able to declare a climate emergency, which does not mean declaring a state of emergency. It means declaring that the world is facing an emergency and that the plan is our solution as a council to combat that and to mitigate that threat. I want us to set some really strong climate targets to work towards, even if we don't meet those targets, as long as we're striving for that, that's something that the community will get behind. I want us to take strong action to move the community towards renewable energy, and I hope that we can find strategies that can be sustained by us. We have to be realistic. Anything we do either has to be cheap or profitable, because we don't have a whole lot of money, and we need to be able to sustain this for a long time in order to get ourselves down to net zero emissions. So yeah, looking forward to seeing where the plan goes, and really pleased with the results that we've got from this survey.
Thanks, Councillor Amsterdam. Councillor Eyre, did you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to note that we had 797 responses, and I think that's absolutely amazing. It just shows how important climate change and action is to our Nillumbik community. Now we're looking for feedback on the draft, and so we've got a bit of work to do this year to get this adopted in December this year, but I'm sure that the community, based on the 797 submissions already, or contacts that we've had that the community will embrace this with us to get this completed by December.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other councillor? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. This is a big topic. It's a hot topic. It's a wet topic. At the moment, we can see there are floods. We've had fires, and for me, climate action and this development of this plan is a really important thing. You know, in summer we'll have heat islands, we'll have hot days, and I think the thing that I really like to commend council on with this survey is that instead of just leaving this up to participate now, for those who are actively engaged with council or who are interested in this topic, of which there were 397 respondents, council took the initiative to go out to the community and did a phone survey, and 400 people participated in that, so that gave extra information. Some highlights with the information was that 28% of people believe that climate change should be the primary consideration for all council decisions. Most, 55%, believe that it should be a consideration, and 42% of the online respondents believe that it should be the primary consideration of council. So really it's something that everybody's interested in. And I'd like to just kind of make this a little bit contemporary by thinking of, you know, the youth council that we've just acknowledged tonight. In reading their submissions, you know, climate change and the emergency was a theme that came through from most of them. And if I'm to look into my own family, just to recount a story, a few years ago, or maybe 7 years ago, when my son was in prep, we went to the Great Barrier Reef, had a lovely holiday. A couple of years later, we're driving, and on the radio comes out that 25% of the Great Barrier Reef has died because of coral bleaching. I didn't pay much attention. But after that, a couple of days later, and tucking him into bed, he's in grade 2 at this stage, you know, he was a bit upset, and I just said, oh, what's happened? Has something happened at school? And he came out to me and it hit my heart. He said, Mum, I'm scared I'm going to die of climate change. This is like a 7 or 8 year old boy. He's now just about to turn 12. So young people have climate action on their minds and in their hearts, and as decision makers and adults, we need to make sure we do something about it, so this is not a problem that young people have to solve, that we don't act on appropriately now and make things worse. And one of the things that really delighted me with this consultation was the way the Wurundjeri were involved, and I won't read out the things that are in the report that were stated about what was important to them, but I would encourage people to make a note of that, and for us as a council to listen and to pay attention so that we can act on the things that the Wurundjeri have said. And one example here is that the need to teach and work with landholders to help them realise the potential of traditional burns. There are other points in this too, protecting species such as the platypus. I won't go through that in more detail, but just to say, caring for country is everybody's business.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillor wishing to speak? Just following on from Councillor Ramtran, it just made me think about council in terms of the services we deliver, which ones are cheap or profitable. It's you know, it'd be a nice thing. We've got a little way to go, but there aren't many areas that council run at a profit. I think leisure facilities is heading in the right direction, but you know, across the council board, I don't think that there are many areas yet, but you know, we certainly need to aspire to that, and you know, those things that we do with the climate action plan, yeah, ideally would need to be cheap or profitable. I agree. We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? It's unanimous and carried. Thanks, councillors. The next item is the Yarra Plenty Regional Library Agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to put up a recommendation that Council continues to be a part of the Yarra Plenty Regional Library Corporation for the next 5 years, and 2, signs the Library Agreement 2021 to 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duffy, thank you. And back to you, Councillor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been a member of the board for the last 4 years, and I've got to say it's been one of the best things about being a councillor, being involved in this group of 13 libraries, and seeing how we value libraries in Nillumbik and the surrounding areas has been quite an honour. There's quite a few things. COVID's caused all sorts of issues, but the staff at the libraries in particular managed to think outside of the box, and some of the ideas they came up with to enable click and collect, for example, but other things, dropping off books via cars and volunteer drivers, it was quite amazing. And after we came out of the first lockdown, there were a lot of older people that said that was the only thing that actually kept them going from a mental health point of view, was getting those books and just their normal publications delivered. There's some things that we covered off in the previous council about extending the hours. So that's now, well, COVID interrupted all of that, but that's now, that review's actually now in action, except for the extensions that are going on next door. So that's enabled a 10% increase in the opening hours, which a lot of the locals were requesting, things like an extended Sunday opening hours, and we were able to mitigate some of the costs by just taking half an hour off the weeknights when there weren't as many people around. So lots of things like that. It's a contribution-based, it's quite a complicated mathematical formula, but even though we're the smallest council with the smallest budget, we have the highest numbers of readers and members in the library across the board. Luckily, our contribution isn't based on that. It's based on our size of population, which is lucky for us, because otherwise we'd be paying the lion's share, because all of our residents love reading. And even through, just prior to COVID, we started off the new little library in Hurstbridge, and that's been a success out of all proportions to what was envisaged. So that's going to be ramped up as well. So it's like a little mini library in Hurstbridge at the hub, where people can order their books online and they get dropped off. But there's also books there that people can take. And I know the Mayor's very anxious to get a library up and running in Diamond Creek. And I know we've been having conversations with the team at the regional. So again, back to funding, but that's certainly on the cards. And again, by all our residents, will be really, really welcome. So it's quite an honour being a member of the board, and I'm hoping that I get support of council this is really just a tick off here about signing the next agreement, but it's something that is really, really worthwhile, and something you don't need to spend money on to be a member of the library. We've got one of the highest member numbers in the state, I think, for Corinne, isn't it? Yeah. So it just tells you how much we value libraries in the Shire, so I'm more than happy to help facilitate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Egan, and to you, Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you. I've been delighted to get an inner exposure into the library, having joined the library board at the beginning of this term of council. And I fully support what you've said, Karen. I hope that we can extend this agreement as well. I've been thoroughly impressed with the competency and professionalism of the people that I've met in the team at Yarra Plenty Regional Library Corporation. Jane Cowell is the CEO, and she does a wonderful job. The Banyule, Whittlesea and Nillumbik partnership has great benefits, and there have been audits into libraries and to the management of libraries, and this is a cost-effective model. Regional library corporations are cooperative models are overall more efficient than standalone libraries, is the reality that's coming out of the audits. Yeah, buying with discount. And with Yarra Plenty regional libraries, when we're looking at the overall performance of libraries, it's in the top 10 of the state's library services for the efficiency measures used in the audits that have taken place of libraries. Eighth now, is it? Okay, thank you. So we are avid library users, and not everybody uses it for books. My most popular use for the library was using it for the computers and for printing. So they are community hubs in a way. And one of the great things that's happening this week is at the new library at Ivanhoe has just been opened, and in this partnership we've been part of that, and I'd encourage people to go and have a look at the Ivanhoe Library to look at the example of a community hub and what that could be. There are many different services that are being bundled in together with that library, including council services with customer service, etc. So yeah, tomorrow night there's a big opening ceremony. Thursday night there's an official opening. But the library's open now to see, and let's see what the future is here for us. But at the moment here in Nillumbik, we've got a great library at Diamond Valley, just down the street, that's going to be getting a facelift, and we've got the Eltham Library that is loved by all. Oh, and one thing that before I stop speaking is that I'd like to acknowledge the library staff. They do a great job. So, it's just nice to be able to go into a place and be able to feel at home and comfortable, and our libraries do that. So whether we're attending an event, they do, yeah. So I think this is a good story, and I'm really excited that the opportunity has come up for us to enter into another 5-year contract with Yarra Plenty Regional Libraries.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? Councillor Stockman.
Thank you. Just want to say that in the latest issue of Nillumbik News, I just announced, of course, the Diamond Valley Library, just the work starting right now, and just the importance, and that I'll be very short. That wouldn't happen, of course, with Yarra Plenty Regional Library Agreement. So big thank you to them.
Thanks, Councillor Stockman. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that we all love our libraries, and they have evolved so much from the days of when we were told to shh. So they run programs to engage and educate and include residents, in addition to obviously loaning out books, and libraries are just so much more than that now. Everything from reading with a range of different animals, to mums and bubs sessions, to story times, sessions for seniors, and all different things, and students can go in and study, and they're just amazing places. But also to acknowledge too that we have the library buses, and they go out to some of our rural townships, but I'd really like to see Diamond Creek get a library as well, so we'll see how that goes. Thank you.
Any other councillors? Diamond Creek's been mentioned a couple of times, so I'll just support that notion. Look, there are sometimes difficult decisions that we make on council, and sometimes there are very, very easy decisions. This is an example of a very easy one. When a service is operating well and there's no reason to change, and it's only going to get better, why would you consider doing anything but signing up for another 5 years? They're doing a fantastic job. Diamond Creek Regional Library is on their strategic plan. They've accepted. Well, they're actually, they can see the need. They know how popular libraries are in Nillumbik. There's no reason why a regional library in Diamond Creek wouldn't be welcomed by everyone in Diamond Creek and all around, to really give the whole Shire access to a full-size regional library. I think Eltham, when you go to Eltham Library, it's by far the best building that we have in the Shire, I believe, and it's not about the building, it's about the activity that goes on there. It's all ages. It's a fantastic place. You walk in there, as a building when it's closed, it's it's a nice building, but when it's open during the day, it's the best. It's one of the best places on earth. I love what happens at Eltham Library. I would like to see more of it happen throughout the Shire. It's certainly what Diamond Creek lacks in terms of a community centre, a community hub, community hall, meeting space. Library would just really work well for the Diamond Creek community and all the other communities around it. The current community centre is used by people in the rural parts of the Shire for group fitness. You have to make sure that they're not dislocated. But ultimately the best spot for a new library in Diamond Creek would be on the site of the Diamond Creek Community Centre. But I think the first step would need to be to build a gym where those leisure users can get off the site, basically. Hopefully the best place for that would be next to the Diamond Creek outdoor pool and have a Diamond Creek leisure facility, which makes room for the Diamond Creek Community Centre and Diamond Creek Library. But I just, when Councillor Ayer talked about the days when we used to be shushed. I remember when I was a youngster being toured around the State Library and the big octagonal sort of reading room, raised platform in the middle, which I was told was where the shusher stands. Now, whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but I thought it was a great story to have someone who was paid to stand over the top of everyone and yell out shush if there was any noises being made. So I've said enough. I'll look to put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? And it's carried unanimously. Next is a review of instrument of delegation to council members of staff. And I'm looking for a move. Councillor Payne.
I will move the motion as per the papers.
Thanks, Councillor Payne. And Councillor Ramcharan looks like he's willing to second. Back to you, Councillor Payne.
And nothing to add? It's a
Nothing to add.
procedural matter.
And Councillor Ramcharan. Any councillors? Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Unanimous. Next one is the adoption of S11A, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation under the Planning and Environment Act, another procedural one. In Councillor Payne.
I am back and moving the motion as per the papers.
Thank you,
Well,
Councillor.
actually, or should I read it out? Here we go.
Oh,
I haven't spoken for a while.
your hardest.
Recommendation is that Council, in the exercise of the powers conferred by Section 147(4) of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, resolves 1. That the members of Council staff referred to in the S11A Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation be appointed and authorised as set out in the instrument. And 2. The instrument comes into force immediately after it is signed by Council's Chief Executive Officer and remains in force until Council determines to vary or revoke it.
Thank you, Councillor Payne, and seconded by Councillor Stockman. Councillor Payne.
Nothing to add, procedural matter.
Councillor Stockman. Any councillors? Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Unanimous. Next, I think we were going to do a procedural motion. Thank you, Councillor Egan.
Can you hear me, Jim? That council alter can't read with these on, alter the order of business, consider report 04621 under item 17 in confidential reports. Can I
Thank
have a
you,
second?
Councillor Egan. Do we have a seconder? And Councillor Payne.
I hereby second the motion.
Excellent. You nearly missed out, but you've done well. Any discussion, Councillor Egan? Councillors will put it to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Unanimously. The next one is the tender report contract 21-2070 Microsoft licensing solution provider. Looking for a motion. And yeah, have I got the right one? Yep. Councillor Egan. Councillor Stockman. Yep.
Yes, I'll move the motion as per the papers.
Thanks, Councillor Stockman. Do we have a seconder?
I will second the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Payne. Oh, rightio. Just confirming, Councillor Stockman, that we're actually the preferred tenderer is named. That's the name of the company, isn't it? Of course. So just clarifying, Councillor Stockman, that we've filled in the gap there and accepts the bill of materials as submitted by the preferred tenderer being Data Number 3 Limited. So you're happy with that motion?
Yes.
Yep. I haven't missed one. I don't believe I've missed one. Yep. So Data Number 3 Limited, we've got a mover in Councillor Stockman, seconded by Councillor Payne.
I second.
Any discussion, Councillor Stockman?
No.
Councillor Payne?
Not from me.
Any councillor? Councillor Duffy?
Just one. That's where transparency is important to me, and that's where I would like to see us minimise the number of contracts that we go into confidential mode for. There are sometimes it's good that the community hears what our debate is about, but I accept what you've I meant to say that for the previous contract about graffiti, but I just wanted to put that on the table now. So it's good that this one is out in the open.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillor wishing to speak? We'll put that to the motion. Put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Youth council members, we've done. I'm just trying to find the next one. It's informal meetings of councillors' records, 23rd of March 2021. Page 117 of the council agenda. And I'm looking for a motion.
I think I was moving that motion.
You can move that motion. Councillor Payne, do we have a seconder? Councillor Stockman. The motion was as per the papers.
As per the papers.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Recommendation that Council, in accordance with item 19 of Council's governance rule, meeting procedure, receives the informal meetings of councillors' records held the 12th of February 2021, 15th of February 2021, 16th of February 2021, 17th of February 2021, 18th of February 2021, 23rd of February 2021, 24th of February 2021, 2nd of March 2021, the 5th of March 2021, and the 9th of March 2021 as contained in the attachment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Did you wish to speak to the motion? You have a seconder?
I've said enough.
Yep. No. Anyone wishing to speak? Councillor Duffy.
Sorry, yes, there's one thing I'd like to say. Yeah, I have. There'll be maybe meetings that I'm not in attendance, but I just wanted to say, and I meant to say this earlier when we talked about the minutes of the last council meeting, and there are a number of meetings that I was able to attend of these meetings and some that I wasn't because of my medical condition. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I didn't mean to get upset. This is not meant to happen. I wanted to say thank you to the council and thank you to the community for the outpouring of kindness that I've received in sharing my diagnosis of breast cancer. And I'm feeling really strong at the moment. I've had my surgery, and next Wednesday I go into start my chemo, and that's going to be another journey. But I think it's important for me to be transparent and honest and share with people what's happening, and also to be able to advocate for people, men and women, when they have health issues that come up, and any issue for that matter, because we're all people and our lives are affected by different things. So it was just to acknowledge that there are some meetings that I wasn't in attendance at that I would have liked to have been, but there will probably be other meetings that I won't be able to attend over the next 6 to 12 months as I go through this journey. But more so it was to say a heartfelt thank you to my colleagues here as councillors, and to the council staff and to the community for the way that you've made me feel so supported. And I hope that everybody feels this support in their, ups and downs of life. So thank you for letting me have a little bit to say at the end of the meeting about that.
No, of course. Any other councillor wishing to speak? We'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? And it's carried unanimously. Notices of motion, there are no notices of motion. Delegates' reports, none. Supplementary and urgent business, none. Confidential reports. So we have one confidential report. There's two now actually, because we've moved the graffiti tender into there. So Councillor Egan is moving the motion that in accordance with section 6.6. Yes. Can you read out the confidential items, Councillor Egan?
CM 5021 CEO Employment Committee 2021 Mid-Year Performance Review. That's the first one, and the other one, as I mentioned before, was the tender for graffiti. Can I have a seconder?
You, Councillor Egan, and we have a seconder to go to confidential. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Egan, did you want to speak to the motion? Councillor Eyre, any councillor wishing to speak to the motion? We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Yep. The motion's carried unanimously. So we're